like being ugly is one thing, but he's so ugly that you almost would be distracted while you were talking to him. And it's hard to have people that work for you that are so ugly that it's distracting. I find it's almost awkward office talk after that. People start talking about him. So too ugly for me. I that was my decision. I think he's
the moral compass of let me speak to a manager is clearly me and not Ian.
I think he's talented enough. He's talented enough, but he's too ugly. This is episode 64, and ironically, this is like the third or fourth outline Frank and I ever created for Let Me Speak to a Manager podcast. We built this outline a year ago, and for whatever reason, we kind of forgot about it, and we're dusting it off. We found it and we thought, man, why did we do that? That sounds like a lot of fun. So today we are doing a Star Wars office draft. Frank and I each get 5 picks. We go in snake draft order like a fantasy draft, and all characters from New Hope to Return of the Jedi are on the board, and we are trying to build the best team we could if we were to start a company with only 5 characters from Star Wars. Hope you guys enjoy listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it. If you are new to our show, please subscribe. And if you're one of our longtime listeners, get your butt onto Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review.
You're listening to Let Me Speak to a Manager with Frank Cava and Ian Mathews.
What a crock of shit.
Yeah, that was hot mic, Sam.
You can't say God on the air.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Frankie!
Ian, you son of a bitch.
This episode, I don't know if you know this, but this was like the second outline we put together like a year ago. This was supposed to be like episode 3. We never could quite agree on the outline or the how we were going to end up making this work. And I think we ended up doing Godfather instead of this in this episode.
What you're going to realize, dear listener, is maybe we should have left this one on the cutting room floor.
Ooh, no. I think this one's going to be really big. So we are doing, we haven't completely agreed on the rules yet, but we are doing a Star Wars.
This is like what it's like to be like in a fantasy league with Ian. You don't really completely agree on the rules until you're on the clock, and then he changes them anyways if they don't benefit him. My wife is convinced that Ian cheats.
That's not fair. She's convinced. So let's let the listeners know this. Ellie is convinced that I cheat. And the reason is because Frank has been in this league for 10 years and never made a goddamn dollar in it. He's lost every single season. He's just the biggest loser in the entire league. And so she thinks there's no way that someone as smart as Frank could be so terrible at something he puts this much time into. So I can understand if I were facing someone that beat me so repeatedly, I would probably think they were cheating after a while as well. So I understand Ellie's thoughts.
Erroneous.
You okay there? You choke on a little guacamole there, Holmes?
Most of what you said
is
baseless and factless.
We're recording, for Christ's sakes. Would you stop eating for 30 minutes and get through an episode? You have to eat right now.
I'm Italian, Ian. I can't not.
It's absolutely unreal. It's like having a co-host that's 6 years old. I have to tell you everything. We're recording.
This is the reason Jabba the Hutt is off of our draft board.
I'm surprised he's not in there. So here are the rules. If we were to build a startup company from scratch with only Star Wars characters, who would we take? We each get 5 characters to go build a business, any business, but we have 5 characters and we are picking these based on the most redeeming qualities that we believe are in this. Now, some rules that go along with this. We are only choosing from characters from New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And the reason is all the other movies sucked and none of those characters matter. So as anyone who's ever watched any Star Wars knows, there's only 3 movies worth watching, and we are only choosing characters from those episodes. All the rest, in my eyes, never really happened.
Most basic things, I completely disagree with Ian. Episode 1 was terrible. Episode 2 was okay. Episode 3 I thought was actually quite good, especially the last 30 minutes. Episode 4, 5, and 6 clearly fucking amazing. Episode 7 and episode 8 were awesome. Episode 9 was worse than episode fucking 1. Like, oh my God, what a turd.
Episode 9 was a disaster, but I fell asleep in episode 8 too. I didn't really like that so much.
Oh, I like that. The red underneath the salt was really cool.
Okay. But anyway, those are the characters we have to go off of. This is a snake draft, meaning one of us goes and the other one goes and we go around. Who has the number 1 draft pick?
Ian, since you do all the work on this podcast, why don't we give you the number 1 draft pick?
That's fair. This
is hotly debated while we are not recording.
I feel like this episode could go really fast because Frank's style, I have a feeling he's just going to say, I'll take 5 stormtroopers because I'm so smart that I just need a few idiots to do some grunt work for me. That's kind of his style of leadership.
Oh, you are sorely mistaken.
So I'm going to go.
All right. You're already off the clock. You missed your pick. I'm up first.
So with the number 1 draft pick, I am going to go with Princess Leia.
Ooh.
I am coming right out of the gate. I am woke. I don't want anyone to say that there was any diversity issues on my team right out of the gate. So I want to show my team how serious I am. Pros of Princess Leia.
Hold on. No. Let's do the draft and we'll come back to this. Let's draft.
No, I want to say why I picked my person. I'm allowed to. Don't take my time. I'm going to say why I picked Princess Leia.
Oh, here we go. Change the damn rules.
No, I got my pick. So I love Princess Leia because she is rich. She could be a spoiled little fart, and yet she chooses to grind, which is the opposite of most rich, spoiled little farts. She's brave. She puts her life in jeopardy. She's got massive cojones, stands up to Darth Vader, Jabba the Hutt. She risks torture. So she is someone who, if she believes in the cause, and I am starting a company, you have to have a mission and you have to have people that really care about the mission. She believes in the mission. She can't be bought. She is the stronger of the 2 siblings. She becomes a military genius. She's, in my opinion, the smartest of all the Star Wars characters and from strategy. And she's got a lot of pros. I mean, her only cons really is she's kind of prone to office romances. So could be an HR issue. I think she kisses her brother a little too intimately at times, which is also could creep out the office. Might not blend in with, the lunch crowd going to McDonald's. She's probably a little too hoity-toity. And at some point she's definitely going to take my job. So I think that's probably the biggest con, is that I'm not as competent as Princess Leia. So I'd have to worry about the board moving me out and moving her into a CEO role if I had a couple bad quarters in a row. But I think this is about the safest pick you could take right out of the gate for the number 1 pick. Princess Leia has her shit together.
I'm glad you picked her. I think throughout the course of the season, you're going to see that I picked the smarter pick first. And I'm going with her more popular brother, Luke, with my first pick going straight chalk. Right out of the gate. A little bit of a rube in the beginning, a little bit of a runs his mouth a little bit too much at times, can sometimes be a bit of a hothead. However, I feel like over the course of the 3 movies, he really grows up and grows into something. He is going the way of the machine. So if you've ever watched Terminator or read the book Sapiens, you know that we're all turning into machines. He's already, 1/16 there since his arm was cut off. And he had to come back with a metal hand. Possibly the coolest moment in my thematic history was when I was 8 years old and Star Wars episode The Return of the Jedi came out. I remember how excited I was when Luke popped up and he had the green lightsaber. Like I was like, holy shit, they went green.
Yeah.
So like I remember like almost spilling my entire popcorn. I was very excited about that. But in all seriousness, the reason that I think Luke is the best is or a good first pick is he is the hope. He's the guy that he's the last of the breed. And he is someone who the future is staked on, which is a lot of pressure, able to perform, able to grow. You want someone to come in with raw talent, but then you have to harness that talent in an office. And I believe that he is he's the pick for me for that reason. Any rebuttals there, Ian?
You just said something that I hadn't thought of that I really like, actually. I got to give you kudos on it. He does have an incredible hero's arc, which means he is adaptable, he's coachable, and he can grow. And that's what you want in a startup, is someone who their skills help you today, but they can grow with your company over 5 to 10 years and become someone even better, a better version of who they are today. Because you kind of need people, when you start a company, you need people that can grow with the challenges of the company. And as the company gets more complex, are they able to handle it? So Luke starts as just a little farm boy and ends up, you know, pretty much running the rebellion with his sister. So he grows throughout the whole process, where Princess Leia is kind of a stud right from the start and is still a stud in the last movies. Luke is a loser as he starts and really grows into the leader that he is. Princess Leia is straight leader right out of the gate.
And what we learned in episode 3, if you'd watched it, but you probably hadn't, is that they were trying to hide the kids from the father, who's Darth Vader, right? And so they split them up and they put Leia with a prince and a princess. And that's the reason why she became Princess Leia. And they stuck Luke on a farm. So he had, you know, he was kind of, I used the word rube intentionally. He was like, he was made to look as that because they wanted to hide him. And but he did grow, he did progress, and he kind of came off as a bit of a punk in the first one, but by Return to Jedi, he was a master. And I mean, he had a lot of struggles too. If you think about when he went to see Yoda and he couldn't do the job, he couldn't do the work, it required some mental fortitude to get through it. And he had some struggles. So all right, he's number 2.
My rebuttal, my only rebuttal, the reason why I went with Leia over Luke, is he's a bit of a whiny bitch. That's my only rebuttal. He seems to always be complaining and whining and scared. And I feel like he would be a really high maintenance employee to have to deal with, who's always nervous and asking like, how am I doing? And am I doing okay? And I would have to every day pat him on the head. And I feel like that would just get old. Whereas I think Princess Leia has a lot more confidence and I wouldn't have to just pat her on the head all the time.
And as we all know, Ian is a whiny bitch, and he only wants one of those in the office.
There can only be one diva in my office. There can only be one.
All right, my second pick is Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, and this is why. Older, seasoned, understands, can teach, can train, smells better than Yoda. So from an office standpoint, you want to have someone around that other people like to be around. I liken this to the first CFO I ever hired. The first CFO I ever hired is, he's like 73, 72 now, but he was high 60s, retired. I think he was 67, 68 when we hired him. He was part-time, but the point is he knew it, he'd seen it, he'd done it. We could rely on him. He was really smart. He could help us do all kinds of things that we couldn't do now. Kind of like if you took a farm boy and you turn him into, a badass. He could build all types of stuff in front of us. Is he a long-term hire? Is he someone who's going to be there in 25 years? No, Obi-Wan didn't even make it out of the first episode, but he actually knew like how to sacrifice, when to sacrifice. And he was an incredible mentor. So for that perspective, I think there's an incredible overlap between the fictional world here and in the office world. And sometimes with a startup, you need to have someone who understands, who has a broader perspective, and can teach and train a lot of the people that are inside of the organization.
I agree with you. You need a good mentor in every office. Some of my most formative years, my first 5 years out of college, it was the graybeards. It was the guys that have been around for 30, 35 years that I gravitated towards. I just always wanted to be asking them questions. There was a guy by the name of Jim Reichel who was 1 year from retiring when I started, and I dragged that son of a bitch to every meeting. He was like Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon that just wanted to retire, but Mel Gibson was driving him crazy. I took him to every meeting, and I felt so much more confident when he was there, and he would give me great feedback after. But I had a number of them, so mentors matter. What I would say is I think Obi-Wan gets a little too much credit for being a great mentor. For being honest, he's 50-50. I mean, great job on one side with Luke, but how'd you do with Darth Vader? Not so good. He kind of set some things in motion as a bad mentor on that regard. His best years are kind of behind him. So if I'm starting a company, I don't know if I want someone who's on their absolute last legs. And his only real combat, if we're being real, is an ass kicking at the hands of Darth Vader. So I feel like you probably could have done a little better with your second pick.
I wonder how CBS is going to rank us.
I can't wait for the email that comes out to us in the morning, the auto-generated grade of our drafts. Okay, but look, I will say this about Obi-Wan. Very early in a startup's journey, the hardest thing about starting a company is getting your first orders, your first new sales. And I would love having Obi-Wan on my team because of his ability to work Jedi mind tricks. I think he would be awesome in sales. I'd probably put him in sales right out of the gate if that was my second employee, and I would have him absolutely working customers over for better margins and more sales.
These are not the drones you're looking for.
These are not the drones I'm looking for. Also, you actually have two of them. So actually you're, from a sales perspective, you're way out ahead of me because Luke is also very good at the Jedi mind tricks of getting what he wants.
By the end.
So my second employee, this might be a bit of a surprise. I am going to go with R2-D2 as my second hire. So, and I'll explain. So as the founder, I already have a very fiery leader who is full of piss and vinegar, brave, out there, good, strategic, smart thinker. Any good startup business needs some early folks that are willing to do the dirty work, that are willing to be on the front line, that are loyal, that'll stay with you when you go through those shitty months and even years when you're not kind of executing where you want, where everything isn't perfect. R2-D2 is super smart. R2-D2 is loyal. We could probably hire him cheap. We got him off the junk pile, so he's not going to be too expensive for a startup. He just kind of always exceeds expectations. You don't expect a lot out of him, but he always ends up making things work. I mean, he's the one that got a message. We talk about getting a message to Garcia. He got a message to Leia. And when you look at everything that R2-D2 brings.
Hold on. Technically, he got a message from Leia.
That's true. To Luke. Luke and Obi-Wan.
We meant to get to Obi-Wan, but it went to Luke.
That's right.
Because he's a bit senile too, but that's a different story.
Yes. Trustworthy. So the princess, who did the princess trust to get that message? She trusted R2-D2. That's who she trusted, which trash can on wheels. I think his wins against replacement is really high. I think it's really hard to replace R2-D2. If you need to get into a door, he kind of can fix shit. He is an out-of-the-box thinker. If one of his keys isn't working, he'll just kind of shoot some electricity into it and mess with it. Always opening things. Everyone seems to like him. I don't think no one in any of the three movies is always like that R2-D2 is a dick. So I think he's really good for morale in the office. And that's important. You need someone who's just, is going to show up every day and bring everything. Do you have a rebuttal?
No rebuttal. What I would tell you is you possibly aren't tapping into all of his skills that you could. He can be your IT man, fix all your computers, clearly, fix any locks. If you
Very important early when you have no IT expertise. You could spend days on it.
And based upon what I know of him, he's probably a whiz on the internet. He's probably great with social media. He can build a campaign for you. A lot of positives there. A lot of positives. The thing I like the best about R2D2 is that he doesn't talk back. He just beeps. Like, fine, perfect. My kind of employee.
If R2D2 worked for Frank, he would be bringing in coffee all day. He would be like getting Frank's lunch order right on a regular basis. Every time Frank's computer glitched, he'd be in there all day, just messing around with it. Like R2D2 would just never leave you. He would be like Luke and R2D2. He would just follow you around the office and do little things, which is exactly how Frank likes to work.
Pick number 5, sir. You're on the clock.
Oh, I'm back up. I'm back up again.
You are. The constitution of a snake draft.
Oh, man.
Well, sadly, you ran out of time for a second time during this draft. So we're going to give you the Rams defense and we're going to move on.
What the hell? There's no timing here. I didn't think there was a timing issue.
I didn't either. It still bite me in the ass. I'm going to send you a bill.
I am going to go with my third pick. You have a good mentor. You have a wise sage. I need one. I'm going to go with Yoda. So pros, a little bit like R2D2. I think in my business, I'm going to save a little bit of money on Frank with office space. So, cubicles for R2D2 and Yoda are going to be much smaller than the average. So from dollars per square foot, I'm going to save some money with my small team. I think a little bit, I got R2D2, so I've got the IT guy. Yoda's not going to be your IT guy. He's not going to be on email. He's going to be a little bit like my first boss at NVR. Not really have a computer that he uses, probably going to need R2 to send and receive most of the things that he needs to save. So I think I could save a little on technology with Yoda, but similar to Obi-Wan, he tends to kind of know what's going to happen before it happens. He's good at seeing into the future. He's got a really strategic mindset. He's a pretty good mentor when it comes down to it. I would give more of the credit to Luke becoming who he is to Yoda than I would Obi-Wan. What he does well, he does it really well. People are always coming to him asking for advice, hundreds of years of experience. So my sage actually has much more experience than Obi-Wan, probably like 700 more years of experience. So I think that's really good. I think, a little bit like your Obi-Wan though is, I'm not sure how long he's going to make it into the progression of our startup. He's a little old when I'm hiring him, probably slowing down, probably a little lazy, probably sleeps. But I think this would kind of be like a Warren Buffett like hire. He'd kind of be in his office and he would read all day and his door would always be open. If you wanted to go talk to him, he wouldn't do a lot, but the things he would do, I have a feeling he would make really, really smart decisions, but only a few of them a week. And I think that's really important early in a startup, is that you're going in the right direction. It's knowing where to go and what to do are two different things. And if you can figure out where to go and what moves to make, it's easier to find people to go help you execute.
I think he's a fine choice. You can get him out of his hut. I wonder how many productive years he has left, but I understand the allure of Yoda.
He's a little passive aggressive, and we've talked about that we don't like passive aggressive in an office so much. So I think that is kind of an issue. I think that would get old with some people, of him speaking in riddles all the time and backwards.
His communication style, I think, could be problematic. I don't know if he's going to be one who is, you can't recruit around him. Good for office morale. David Letterman used to have a segment, Stupid Human Tricks. We could do some fun shit with him from that perspective.
Best days are behind him. He's a little lazy. He doesn't really like to work much. So that's a bit of an issue.
You ever seen The Wolf of Wall Street? He could, potentially, get flown across the office. got to be careful if you got a boozy office, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
All right, so with my next pick, I'm going a little bit off topic, or a little bit, I'm going for deep value. I'm going with Wedge Antilles. In all three of the 4, 5, and 6 was Wedge. He is so he's a talented young rebel pilot. In case you're unaware, he led the Rogue Squadron. He piloted a snow speeder in episode 5. He made it to captain's rank, so not too dissimilar from Luke. Started off as kind of a rank and file type, made it up to captain inside of 2 episodes, and is someone who was relied upon. He shot one of the major shots that brought down the Death Star. Ultimately, our boy Luke is, of course, the one who made it. But the point of the matter is this is a good worker bee, someone who's smart, upwardly mobile, doesn't have a lot of the problems or the baggage that we know about. And inside of an office, you need people who can come in and do the damn job, have some upward mobility, doesn't want to be in the same job in 5 years, wants to have some growth. And I thought he was a good, sensible pick here.
I got to tell you, I love this pick. This is deep value. One thing you just said is really important. There is no baggage. There are no stories. There is no drama around this person. Every time you see him on the screen, he's producing. All he does is execute. And damn, it is fun to manage people like that all they do, it's like Chris Carter, all you do is score touchdowns. I just love employees like that, where you don't get caught up in any of their stories, because there are no stories. They're too busy just grinding out production. Amazing pick.
I'm sure I'm going to get smashed in the face for this one, but I'm going to pick next the Imperial Walkers. I don't know how many I'm allowed to draft, if it's just one or a multitude, but the way that I look at it, we could have probably gotten like the Millennium Falcon and flown around, but I don't know how to fly, and I don't know if we're going to like another territory or not. So for me, the Imperial Walker is a good one. It can do all kinds of good stuff. It can move shit, lift things up, destroy things. I mean, endless possibilities. You as a manager are the only limitation to an Imperial Walker. So having a good, strong presence with, the old guard in Obi-Wan, I'm sure Luke can drive it, and I would be shocked if Wedge can't. So for me, it's an Imperial Walker is my 4th pick.
Isn't it a little limited though? And I mean, the whole premise of Star Wars is you're up in the stars, you're in space, and this thing can't fly. If you're going to pick a vehicle, wouldn't you pick something that could do well on the ground and up in the air?
Again, I don't know what my business, maybe your business model brings you all around the world. Mine keeps me pretty limited. I'm just in Richmond, Virginia. If I'm building a startup, I want to get shit done here.
Okay, I'll allow it. Go ahead and allow it.
Our make-believe draft with absolutely no consequences.
I'm gonna allow it.
Glad to see Ian, the arbiter of truth.
I'm gonna allow it.
Commish.
So I am gonna go with my 4th pick. I am gonna go with C-3PO.
I knew it.
Speaks 6 million forms of communication, including Spanish. And Spanish is important in America, where I will be starting this. So incredibly intelligent, doesn't eat much, doesn't require much pay, incredibly loyal, similar to R2-D2. I feel like a lot of things we've talked about, the importance of partners and people you've worked with a long time. I feel like he immediately adds value to R2-D2, and R2-D2 adds value to C-3PO. I feel like if you got either one of those two on your team without the other, they wouldn't be as effective. I feel like they kind of complete each other. And I feel like in any startup, you you can't just hire people that are hard workers and grinders. You need some brains. So, if you're starting anything and you are trying to create a moat, you need someone who can outthink the competition. And C-3PO is very good with statistics, with probabilities, with thinking through different processes. So having that kind of intelligence, he's kind of like bringing in the engineer on your team, the star engineer from another company that's going to help you design a product or design anything. You kind of need a little bit of that. Now, I think you're going to run into, some issues with having to boost his self-confidence. I think my team could use a little more self-confidence. So I think that's a problem. He's constantly worrying. But I wanted to add some brains to this team. So I didn't have to do all of the thinking. And I think C-3PO brings plenty of that.
So I'm married to a linguist, so I need someone who can speak 6,000 languages. I've already got that at home. That's one. Two, I believe C-3PO is the only character in all 3 episodes that we're discussing who's been shut off because he was so fucking annoying. He's literally, they've muted him. So that could be a good thing. He comes with his own mute button, which is great. But he's also not really up on current events or paying attention to other people. I'm curious what his situational awareness is. But it's an understandable pick. He would go well with R2-D2. A lot of history together. It's kind of like we've seen in the NFL drafts of late. The Bengals drafted the receiver, Jamar Chase, who is their quarterback's #1 target. They won a national championship together, and the 2 guys are doing incredible together. And we can go through countless episodes of that where there's a lot of continuity. So bringing in people with a work history is a smart move.
And I'm going to go with my last pick. I'm going to go with Chewie with my last pick. Chewie plays a role. He's an absolute grinder. He just shows up. He's always there for you. He, unlike C-3PO, because C-3PO is going to take a lot of the oxygen out of the air. You are not going to get a lot of talking out of Chewie. You're not going to get a lot of talking back, lipping off. He's there to work. He's loyal. He shows up. He is incredibly handy. He's a very diverse character. He's an expert pilot. He's an expert mechanic. So, again, another guy that could help you build things. He is about as tough of a character as you'll find in the Star Wars world. He can shoot, he can fight, he can arm wrestle. Might be a little bit one-dimensional at times in your conversations with him. And it would take you a while to kind of understand what the hell he had to say to you. I'm not sure there's a lot of upward mobility with Chewie, but I already have Princess Leia, who is going to be gunning for my job at some point. I don't need 2 of those. And I don't think Chewie wants my job. Chewie's really good with being a number 2. And that's all Chewie ever wants to be. Chewie doesn't want to be the CEO. So I won't have to worry and watch my back. I think, I don't think Chewie would be a flight risk. He's a loyal guy.
I understand that choice. It's hard to argue with the choice. No real rebuttal out of me. Again, you've got him, C-3PO, and Yoda together. So I don't know if you're going to have a lot of office parties or, a lot of communication. You got someone, obtuse in C-3PO, someone who only goes in or whatever he does in Chewie, and then you
don't forget R2-D2 who only beeps.
Right, you got basically you got C-3PO, R2-D2, Yoda, and him. So the only person who speaks is Princess Leia and you.
This is not a team that I built on happy hours. I'm trying to build a billion-dollar unicorn company, and I hired them based on talents, not on who I want to drink beers with on the weekends.
So this is an incredible story about Chewbacca that must be told. So Nickel, who is a fan favorite, who has literally been, referenced a bunch of times, my friend since middle school, went to work out of college for Arthur Anderson. And Arthur Anderson used to be like one of the big four, big six accounting firms, one of the biggest around. And the whole Enron thing broke. And this is in the era before text messages. This is probably a text message nowadays. But back then there was office voicemail. And basically the ship was going down. Like Arthur Anderson was about to go completely, from a Fortune 100 company to bankrupt and decimated. And someone got control of the office-wide voicemails and left a voicemail for everyone in the voice of Chewbacca. I don't think Jeff was able to save it, but he still talks.
Was he talking or was he just growling like Chewie? Or was he actually talking?
Yeah, it was just growling and making sounds like Chewbacca.
That's amazing. That's
it's
amazing.
great.
That's
all
amazing.
Right. So this is going to be a risky pick, but we're late in the draft process. This is my logic. I got Luke, Obi-Wan, Wedge, and the Imperial Walkers. I'm strong with brute force. I'm strong with a doer and Wedge. I've got someone with incredible upward mobility and a growth arc, Luke. I've got the wise old sage in Obi-Wan. And sometimes in the beginning, you need a mercenary. You just need someone who can come in and do the job. Are they long-term? Are they great for culture? Probably not. But they're effective, they're good at what they do, and they help keep you in business. Now, it can become a moral quandary if you can keep them out of trouble. But I can tell you this from the beginning, like our standards were not as high when we started. So I am going to pick Boba Fett, who is also...
this is an upset. This is an upset.
Who is also known as the bounty hunter. I actually was going to go in a very different direction here with pick 5, but I picked him for this reason. I feel like I'm strong. I feel like I got a good team. I feel like I have a good moral compass, and I need someone who just comes in and gets shit done. And he will probably be a flight risk or a turnover. He's out for himself. He's selfish. But again, in the beginning, you need people who can help get the job done and keep you going. And you go into it realizing I'm not hiring everybody to last forever. One of our earlier podcasts, Ian and I did an entire podcast about Amazon and Jeff Bezos. And he talked about ruthlessly replacing people in the beginning with people who are more talented. And this happens in businesses and careers is you find someone who can get the job done now, but they don't necessarily have a 20 or 30 year window. Maybe it's a 3-year window, but they keep you in business while you're figuring some stuff out. So again, a little bit of a risky pick, but that's my pick.
Boba Fett, he's the best at what he does. He's probably going to charge top dollar in the universe for his services. Not going to be the best for culture, but you're right. When you're starting a company, you need people that are very good at what they do, whether that be programming or whether that be legal, or if it is, working with microwave sensors on a product. You need people that are just kind of come in narrow, incredibly good at what they do, and it's worth paying them a little bit of extra money early on, even though they probably aren't going to broaden out and do much else. So from that perspective with Boba Fett, you're getting one of the best in the world at what he does. A bit of a child prodigy. I would say Boba Fett, though, has some serious diva tendencies. So I think there's a lot of risk there in hiring someone who thinks as highly of himself as Boba Fett does. He's not going to be loyal to you. So you're going to have to, I think you're always going to be negotiating pay with Boba Fett, which is going to get old for you. I think he's going to be back talking to you every 3 months and renegotiating his salary. He kind of serves the dollar and that's it. So I think that's a pretty risky pick, honestly, for a startup to go with a guy like Boba Fett, even though he's really good. And I think he's going to serve a role.
For sure. It comes with risk, but in a startup, you turn over people a lot. And the thing to do is to bring in people to help keep you in business long enough to make it to your next iteration. So from that perspective, it's a risky pick, but I think that it's a strategic pick because of the fact that I have other people who I think are going to have the moral high ground where he may not.
So in summary, my team is made up of Princess Leia, Yoda, R2-D2, Chewbacca, and C-3PO. Your team, you chose an Imperial Walker?
Yeah. I'm in construction, man. Gotta move shit around.
I'm stuck on this, that you chose an Imperial Walker. It's fantastic.
They're big, they're strong, they're imperial in nature. I mean, what's not to love?
You have an Imperial Walker. You have Luke Skywalker.
Obi-Wan,
You have Obi-Wan,
Wedge.
Boba Fett, and Wedge. That's your squad.
That's my squad.
So notable.
Yes, I want to talk about this.
Notable people who did not get drafted onto either of our teams from the inaugural Star Wars draft. I think the most obvious one that did not get chosen is Han Solo, which many people think is the star of the original trilogy. Han Solo's pros: he's handsome, he's brave, he's witty. If we're going off of Frank's logic of fun for a happy hour, I think he'd probably be the most fun of anyone you could take to a happy hour. Can you think of anyone more fun than him at a happy hour? I feel like he'd be the guy I'd want to party with the most.
Out of this crowd, maybe Lando Calrissian, but that's it.
That's a traitorous dog, that Lando Calrissian. Very confident. I think that's positive. So Han Solo would obviously be a strong sales and marketing person. But obviously we didn't choose him for a reason to put on our team. What were your reasons?
So I clearly took a flight risk or a selfish person in Boba Fett, but I think Boba Fett is a little bit more calculated and a little bit more strategic than Han Solo. So if I'm going to take a risk on somebody, I'm going to take a risk on somebody who's incredibly good and not always. I use the term mercenary. I hired a mercenary, not a train wreck who is making morally bad decisions over and over again. And I think that's where we land with Han Solo. Han Solo is arrogant. Like, I love you. I know. Like, he's an arrogant dude. So Boba Fett is a mercenary, but I don't think he's arrogant. I think he's tactical and smart. I just see him as being, although able to get the job done, I use this term a lot in my business. He's kind of, you can go with dumpster fire or a yard sale. He's just all over the place and he's very hard to scale. And sometimes you have to have superhero management to keep him in track or on track because of the fact that he's just so wild and all over the place.
I think he's overconfident. I think he has questionable judgment. And I feel like judgment is pretty important when you're starting a business especially in the first few people that you bring in. I also feel like he's incredibly selfish. And a little too self-absorbed for starting a company. When you're starting off, you really can't have a lot of divas because everyone's getting humbled all the time when you're starting a business. I don't see any loyalty. I think Han would leave you in a second. I think he'd be a lot like Joba or Boba Fett. You could not have Boba Fett and Han Solo on the same team. You just could not. So you're already going to be negotiating with Boba every 2 or 3 months on salary, which is going to wear you thin. You can't have Hans in your office all the time. He's also going to be a distraction if you've got women on your team. I have Princess Leia, so I could not have Hans because she wouldn't be able to focus. He's so handsome. He's definitely the guy who's like, he's going to get voted most likely to be banging a receptionist. That's Han Solo, which is an HR problem for sure. So I don't know that you could have, I think that'd just be too much work for a startup.
I hope we use this in one of the clips, me just grabbing my face. How can you have a Star Wars draft without an HR problem, Ian?
Yep, you got to have an HR problem.
So let's clearly there's the big one we'll go to last, but let me go through some kind of honorable mentions who didn't get drafted. Admiral Akbar, to me, didn't add a lot of value. We just kept screaming, "It's a trap."
It's a trap.
Became an incredible meme, but not much else.
I think it'd also be weird to have him on your team because, like, being ugly is one thing, but he's so ugly that you almost would be distracted while you were talking to him. And it's hard to have people that work for you that are so ugly that it's distracting. I find it's almost awkward office talk after that. People start talking about him. So too ugly for me. That was my decision. I think he's
the moral compass of let me speak to a manager is clearly me and not Ian.
I think he's talented enough. He's talented enough, but he's just too ugly.
All right. Stormtroopers. We talked about them off the jump. They're not draftable. Those are 1099s. You bring them in when you need them. You need a little muscle, but that's it.
They're replaceable.
So one of the people who I was thinking about potentially drafting was an Ewok, but honestly, I think I got that. I got my muscle from my Imperial Walker. But an Ewok is again kind of like maybe an underling to a Chewie. Kind of a worker bee type, more of a pawn than someone on the back line.
I feel like that's just a miniature version of Chewie that's not as mechanical though. Like if you're gonna go with something that just makes a bunch of weird noises at you all the time, get one that could kick some ass too.
And then most notably, besides the last one, is the band. Figrin Dan and the modal nodes. They were on the board. They went to
would have been a good choice.
They went to the combine and they tested strong. I mean, an incredible shuttle drill and an L run. Their 3-cone drill and their speed was off the charts, but they were not drafted. And who else did we not draft, Ian?
And I don't know whether the problem with Figrin Dan and the modal nodes is I question their ambition. Because they're talented as hell. I mean, they are really, really talented. They're a great band. Why are they playing in that low ass dive bar? I mean, why? Like, at some point, you got to have some courage and try to be a winner. Try to get a little bit bigger. Try to move your way up.
So there's one omission who I think is quite large that we haven't talked about yet. You want to bring him up?
So Darth Vader, neither of us took Darth Vader. I thought you were going to take Darth Vader. When you went with Luke and you took Obi-Wan, when you did both of those, I thought you were going to think, okay, I could balance out Darth Vader. I think I could put Darth on this team and handle it. I actually thought you were going to do that instead of Boba Fett.
Yeah, I just think Darth Vader just comes with too much baggage. Just too much, flying off the handle, choking people out, very destructive. I feel like a mercenary is different than someone who is just an altogether tyrant. And that's the reason why I didn't pick him. I don't care how strong your office culture is, talented, incredibly so, but too much of a problem. To me, that's where the fine line is drawn. Is someone like Boba Fett is really talented. They're selfish and they're going to leave for a bigger paycheck, but they're really good at what they do and they kind of keep to themselves. Where I think your office culture could be completely ruined with someone like a Darth Vader, clearly, because that's kind of his MO.
I think someone like Darth Vader, what kept me from, I almost went with him at the end there. I went with Chewie instead. But the reason why I wouldn't want Darth Vader is he is just not coachable at all. He is very, very focused on his way of doing things. He can't be motivated. He's got a one-track mind of domination, and you can't motivate him with money. You can't motivate him with encouragement, with coaching. He would likely try to oust me by killing me at some point. I think we'd have turnover issues in the office. I think he's a terrible manager. You can't just choke employees anymore. I mean, in the 90s you could, but I think things are different today. You can't just choke people when they're not listening to you or performing as well as you want. So it'd be really hard to create an open culture with Darth walking around and killing people.
So a friend of mine got some feedback at one point in his career, and it was something to the tune of, we want people who look for win-win, and you are always looking for a win-lose. And what it looks like with the Darth Vader is it's a win-lose. Like, he's got to win and other people have to lose. And and what you realize in this, and this is why I didn't even, so I had him off my board, which means under no circumstance would I draft him. I had Han
Do not
Solo.
draft. He was on the do not draft list.
Yep, I had Han Solo and Darth Vader both on my do not draft list. Now, I initially I thought about Boba Fett being on that list, but when I was coming down to it, I took him off because he serves a purpose and a specific one. And I think he could do great things for a limited period of time, but I don't think he's going to overreach to a point where he's going to bring you down. And I do think that could be the case for both Han Solo and for Darth Vader. I am a startup business. I'm 12 years into it, but I have seen this person. I have seen someone with a dark history and a dark past, and they're a no. They're a constant no. But I have also seen the mercenary that's jumped a bunch, 2 years here, 2 years here, 2 years there, but they are top 2 in sales at every car dealership they've ever worked at. A person brings in revenue. Now, are they scalable? Most likely not, but they help you get to the next better person. They don't kill you like a Han Solo or a Darth Vader could.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Even though Darth Vader would be really good in real estate, he's good at collecting as much real estate as possible, good with acquisitions. He'd be good in that as well. But you're right. He is very much an all or nothing thinker. Your win is my loss. That's how he thinks of everything. And there is no negotiating. And I think just in general, that kind of inflexibility does not work for a startup. And I'd also say for all of his bluster, he's not very competent as a leader. I mean, he got the Death Star blown up twice.
He's not a leader. He's the perfect example of someone who's great at their job that gets promoted into a leadership role who doesn't deserve a leadership role. He may have been great at his job. He ruled with fear, and he elevated up in an old school culture, but it doesn't work today. He cannot work across the aisle. He is simply a dictator.
Everyone around him is scared to argue with him,
right,
or give up any new ideas. So all the ideas are Darth Vader's. And because of that, no one tells him when something's not about to work. And he got the Death Star blown up twice with poor judgment.
And one of the things that you always talk about is the emperor with no clothes. So the emperor with no clothes is a great analogy here, because nobody can give him any feedback at all because he's not willing to listen.
I'm not sure if there's a winner or loser. I think CBS is going to send us an email in the morning. I feel really good about my squad, but I'm not going to lie to you. I think your squad's pretty good. The Imperial Walker, I feel like, was a reach. I feel like you didn't need to go as early as you did with the Imperial Walker. Same with Wedge. I mean, you took them pretty early. You left some good names on the board for me. Probably could have got them in the 4th and 5th, but I'd say overall your team's pretty good.
So what I know for sure is Neil's going to win the draft, and he's going to be 2-12.
Longtime listeners, don't forget to give us a 5-star review. And if you're new, like us, love us, forward us, share us. Frankie, good seeing you, buddy.
Always a pleasure, brother.
See you.
See ya.